Welcome to this session. My name is Borja Gutierrez. I am a fund specialist at HiiL, the Hague Institute for Innovation in Law, and very happy to be here today to moderate this session, this breakout session. So for all of you who are just joining the event, a very big welcome. For those of you that have been in the previous sessions, very curious to also hear throughout this this session your thoughts, your insights through the chat function in Hopin. So if you have questions, remarks, we'll be monitoring those throughout this panel discussion. So I definitely highly encourage you all to feel free to engage with us in the chat. We definitely want to have a very insightful, interactive, engaging session between all of us. So this will be run in the format of a panel discussion, which I will be moderating, but I think the attention will be very much more on the three speakers that will be joining us, who are three, I would say, sort of very innovative players in the justice system, focusing in different ways, in some ways related to the sort of game-changing justice services that have been previously mentioned, or one of those categories. Although there is some overlap with others, but we're focusing quite heavily here on sort of online dispute resolution, but of course focusing much more broadly on sort of the role of private sector and public sector in sort of achieving access to justice, how technology plays a role in that. Because I think as we've heard throughout the conference, technology in itself isn't an answer, but I think we have three excellent, let's say, innovators, entrepreneurs who are using in their approaches technology, but do obviously very much more than that. But yeah, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our three panelists who are joining me, starting first with Laura Kistemaker, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Justice for Two, running a platform called Autocar. I won't explain it myself. I'll let Laura in a minute also explain it. Also, we have Jinho Verdonschot, who's the CEO of eJustice, and as well as many other ventures that he is going to also tell us about in shortly. And finally, also we have Alejandro Palomo from Jur.io, which is also taking a very innovative kind of approach to online dispute resolution, which Alejandro will tell us about also shortly. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is going to be hopefully an engaging, interactive panel discussion. But in order to sort of get a sense of who you all are and sort of what you bring to the table, I'd like to invite each of you to maybe just give a very brief introduction, maybe starting with Laura.
Sure. Thank you, Borja. So yes, my name is Laura Kistemaker. I'm co-founder and CEO of Justice for Two. We are based in The Hague in the Netherlands, and we developed an online divorce platform. We are a mission-driven organization. So our goal is to prevent escalation during divorce. We're a B2C, business to consumer organization. Our target group are those divorcing couples. And what the platform does, it helps people to make all the necessary divorce agreements and to take the steps to formalize their divorce. It's an online service in that the couple works on a sophisticated platform that translates their particular situation in suggestions for agreements that could work for them or that should work for them best in the future, taking all interests into account, especially of children, if there are children. But in addition to being an online platform, it's also a hybrid service. We have a network of case managers, lawyers, other divorce-related experts that join the case either online or they are available for support in person, dependent on what's needed in the case. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do.
Excellent. Thanks for that intro, Laura. And yeah, well, I'll follow up with some questions in a minute, but thank you for that. Jinho.
Yes, thank you, Borja. At Justice, we develop and bring to the market technology-enhanced legal and dispute resolution services. We are active in the Dutch market and in the German market. And what we basically do is We have redesigned and reimagined legal services to the extent that the whole costing perspective for consumers and businesses are much more predictable. So we managed to work with fixed fee packages, which is much easier when you start using technology. In addition to this, we've also developed a special matching algorithm which enables users who are looking for legal and dispute resolution services to find a really good match on the basis of their needs, their personalities, and their problems. And finally, what we offer at eJustice is also a very user-friendly way to, in a completely automated fashion, basically click your legal documents that are completely tailored to your needs together. We are based in Cologne, mostly active in the Netherlands and in Germany. And for some of the solutions that we have, we also branch out to countries like Ireland and Australia, for example.
Thanks, Inho. And just to clarify then, what exactly is your business model? So I think Laura had mentioned they focus on a B2C model. What's your, especially on the dispute resolution side of things?
Yeah, I think what you see is differences in the markets that we operate in. And these are mostly due to regulatory restraints that are alive and kicking in some countries. But mostly we have a B2C proposition and the document solution we typically offer in a B2B manner.
Thanks. No, and that's an interesting point on the regulatory and how you have to adapt. And I definitely want to come back to that a little bit later in the discussion to hear a little bit more about your experience. Yeah, and finally, I'd love to introduce Alessandro and hear a little bit about you and Jur.io.
Thanks, Borja. I'm really glad to be here. I mean, my name is Alessandro Polombo. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Jur. I mean, we deal with arbitration. I mean, our vision is that in the next decade, I mean, the more and more the private sector will be able to provide a better, faster, and more affordable service for dispute resolution. We decided to invest in a solution which leverages the arbitration framework. So we built a platform for modern digital arbitration that actually cuts the costs for about the 50%, and it solves disputes in about 90, 100 days, depending on the complexity and the value of the claim. We are based in Switzerland and in San Francisco, and the platform we built has a specific characteristic of being UNCITRAL model arbitration law compliant, which means that our goal is to offer the same online standard dispute resolution process across different, let's say, jurisdictions. We offer both ad hoc procedures and administered ones. And the benefit for small businesses is essentially to have a alternative solution for solving small claims. We are not really competing with existing arbitration chambers or institutions. We are targeting a new market, which is made by smaller claims. And we found out that there is a quite demand from small businesses or medium businesses for this type of resolution, because in the end is going to save, you know, compared to public courts, most of the countries, really a lot of time. We have released recently the private bid beta. You can give a look on our website and get listed, because I mean, early soon we are starting onboarding publicly also arbitrators. We are looking for modern and also younger arbitrators. They want to make let's say, a path of also training with us and become, let's say, digital arbitrator on our platform. The first market we will operate within will be the American market primarily, and a few markets of Europe, thanks to some partners. I mean, the business model is typical, you know, for the field of dispute resolution, which includes a dispute fee that, as I mentioned, is going to be, I mean, more affordable and accessible than, I mean, the traditional, let's say, maybe longer and more complex arbitration procedure that normally it is, I mean, helpful for larger value claims. Thanks to, I mean, for having me with you. I'm really looking forward to engage an interesting conversation with you guys.
Excellent. Thank you, Alessandro and Yinho and Laura for your introductions. Maybe one thing that already stands out to me straight away from how you introduce yourselves is that none of you are, let's say, presenting a technological innovation that disrupts and displaces completely the existing formal structures. Let's say what I heard from Laura, for example, you mentioned a sort of hybrid model that you're operating, right, where the dispute resolution happens online, but so much of that happens offline as well. The mediation services, you're working with lawyers. In the case of Yinho, you also integrate, and interestingly, you mentioned how you have to sort of adapt depending on regulation in the jurisdiction. But yeah, so what I'd like to maybe start with, so that kind of stands out, but what I'd like to really start this conversation with a little bit is to understand, okay, we have this conference, right, on eJustice and using eJustice to provide access to justice. But in preparation for this call, I know, Yinho, you brought up a good point around your understanding, let's say, of what eJustice is and how helpful it is to use that term. So what are we really talking about when we talk about eJustice? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, thank you, Borja. I think there are many different definitions that many people follow, but the way I see it, what we do at Justice is we simply enhance or augment justice delivery by using technology. And I think the term eJustice leaves me behind a bit with mixed emotions, because I really think there's only one justice. And the fact that in the justice domain, we finally start adopting technology, it's a very good sign. But in the end, the ultimate goal still remains justice. If I file my taxes online, I don't pay e-taxes. I still have to pay the same type of money. If I order my groceries online, I don't get e-milk or e-bread. I just get my groceries. And I think it's the same in this domain. We utilize the modern tools that have been adopted in many domains of everyday life in the justice sector. And I think that's a very good thing, but the goal remains the same. On the other hand, I think the term eJustice also really, in a good way, reflects where we are, because if using digital tools to enhance our justice system is eJustice, then I think the current status could be described as fax machine justice, or huge piles of paper files justice, or I cannot afford my lawyer justice. So in that respect, I think the term eJustice could also be very appropriate.
Thanks. And no, very interesting. And I think this is a good, and the reason why I also wanted to start with this, because I think it's important to, let's say, frame our discussion in what do we really mean, right? When we're talking about these game-changing justice services, when it comes to online dispute resolution, how are we sort of framing ourselves within that? And what I'm hearing from you, and curious also, Laura, in your situation with Justice for Two and Autocar, right? You're running a bit of a hybrid model. How do you sort of define where, how are you using technology? Where do you define when to use and when not to use technology?
Well, one point of departure in using technology in the justice field should be that one needs to look at the possibilities that technology brings. So if we would choose to just digitalize or automate all the procedures that already are out there in what Yinho calls the fax machine justice era, then we're missing an important point. So what we have tried to do at Justice for Two is to see what is this empowering element of technology that can be that can actually enhance access to justice. And what we see in the field of divorce is that divorce can be very complicated, not in the least because it's happening in one of the most emotional periods of one's life, but there's also a lot of stuff that you need to take care of as a private person. You've probably not ever dealt with this before, so there's this huge amount of information that you're confronted with, because it's all there's a lot of internet information on the internet. There's a lot of decisions to take, and you're as a divorcing person, you're not sure whether you're making the right choices. And I think that technology can structure that process, and can put you as a private person more in charge of everything that needs to happen. So it can also change the way the procedure works. So instead of bringing in a lawyer at the front, helping people because it's too complicated by themselves to navigate the whole process, suddenly you're in this position that people can actually walk that path, because it's cut up in pieces, and it's structured, and it's understandable. So this is what we did. We tried to change the role of the lawyer, of the professional in this process, and yeah, these are the type of things technology can do, I believe.
Yeah, interesting. No, so you say, and so the actual role then of lawyers, let's say, and you're using your platform changes somehow with the traditional systems. Like, how does that look? Can you explain a bit further how the roles of lawyers changes in your approach?
Yeah, the role changes from the professional that takes over all the responsibility for the divorce procedure, to someone that's there to check whether people are not missing things, checking whether people make legally valid agreements, that there is balance between the parties, that people understand the consequences. So we also call the role of the lawyer in our platform the reviewer rather than the lawyer, because he or she reviews the decisions that people have made. So the lawyer also steps in at the later point in the journey. So that's definitely a different role, and a role that we have experience with now for a couple of years, and which we see that's becoming a new type of specialism. How do you support people in online processes as a lawyer? What are the best practices there? What are the dilemmas? What are the benefits of that? And we see that our lawyers find this very interesting, to see how they can still add value, often in a maybe even more meaningful way, because all the administrative, all the standard tasks are taken away from them, and they can really focus on the intrinsic complex questions that people have and need guidance with.
Thanks, Laura. Really interesting. Turning now to Alessandro, in your case, I mean, you're dealing quite a bit with also arbitration. I'm interested also, maybe not just focusing on the roles, but tell us a little bit more about how your technology integrates with existing arbitration platforms. What's already there? Tell us a little bit more about how that works.
Yeah, so well, in our case, actually, I mean, there are not that many arbitration platforms out there. There are a couple of examples which are more, let's say, document management software. So what we built is a bit different, and we are progressively going to integrate it with, the tools that lawyers use for their own profession. So in terms of integration with other, let's say, arbitration platforms, and we don't have in our roadmap anything, but I mean, I don't exclude it. So essentially, it's more a new ecosystem, a new platform for streamlining the entire procedure. What I wanted probably to say my own thinking about is that I find really interesting the opportunity of being today all together discussing this topic, because in my opinion, even if today we call this phenomenon eJustice, that I agree with Jean, that has some limits in terms of terminology. It's really interesting because, in my opinion, this sector is one sector where there is a concrete chance of a 10x improvement under different, let's say, perspectives. As you know, in technology, any startup, there are two major types of innovation processes. One innovation process is more an incremental one or an horizontal one, and another one is a vertical or a transformative one. So what they say, for example, we can give a look at Peter Thiel's famous book, 0 to 1. I mean, there are certain segments in specific momentum or timings of a market where there is the concrete chance to increase of 10x the several aspects of a service or of a product. This 10x shouldn't be only, for example, we decrease the costs of 10 times. It can be also an increase of user experience, easiness to use, and so far and so on. In my own view, in this field, even if with different tools, Laura, of course, all the projects backed by HiiL, Jean, we are trying to leverage this opportunity, which at the same time is a concrete opportunity of improving a lot the user experience, the justice user experience. So in my opinion, the eJustice concept is valuable at this stage of the maturity of the industry, because it lets also professionals and maybe institutions to think, hey, probably, I mean, there is a lot of disruption, even if this term is, is not that pleasant in the space for several industries. And in the end, there is a service which is the one of providing a fair, effective, just, equitable solution of dispute, which is out there and can be improved a lot. So I find extremely exciting to live these months and years, because probably in 10 years from now, they will be recognized as, a big phenomenon started in that specific moment. And I think we can all play a role. The market is so large. And my just last remark is that what we are learning every day, mainly in the US, or for example, in some countries of Europe, is that the concept of one size fits all is not applicable to the civil and commercial justice sector. I'm not talking, of course, about criminal and public law, because we focus mainly on civil and commercial, and that's where our discovery processes. We did quite a long activity and job. So since one size doesn't fit all, I think the opportunity of ADR and digital ADR in the space probably are going to benefit out of this characteristic of the sector. So there will be probably several solutions for different types of problems, and everyone will be more fit, more balanced to every specific need. So this one probably trend that I think from an institutional perspective should be endorsed, because if we think for a while, the typical justice, the offline justice, tradition, which is of course extremely valuable from our, let's say, constituent fathers and so far in the European countries, typically is infrastructure based. So if we want to make an analogy, it's like if someone, thought about the justice system as a protocol, cool. And that was of course meaningful in a period where digitization was close to zero. It's the same, we can do an analogy with the education system. In the end, every class, every university, in the end, you don't have a specific course if you are a student that maybe requires less time. And from a sociological perspective, this is not really meaningful because we are all different. So the same could be applied to justice. And I see in this opportunity of the next, years of innovation to fill this gap, getting closer to the different and more, let's say, diversified needs of individuals and businesses.
Borja, maybe if I can add a bit to what Alessandro and Laura said, because I very much would like to echo their points. And we also see that the way in which technology can enhance the access to justice services that we provide is basically twofold. For our customers that we help with for a very broad range of justice problems. This can be a tenant that is bullying, a landlord that is bullying a tenant, someone who is threatened to lose their job, or some crisis due to family disputes. What we see is very normal behavior, is that many of these people first want to make an inventory and take some actions themselves. If that doesn't work sufficiently, they very often want to take some next actions together with someone. And if that doesn't work, they want to hand over their issue to a professional. And I really see that technology and very good interfaces really support that process. So in that sense, it helps us to reshape and reimagine access to justice services. On the other hand, internally, we also see that technology really helps our team of lawyers on several aspects. I think one of the more important ones is delivering very high quality in a very consistent manner. I mean, due to some very good legal decision trees, for example, or other information repositories, by building on the best templates available, it helps us to consistently deliver high quality. In addition to this, we also see that because we are reimagining our services on access to justice and utilizing technology, the affordability also can make some dramatic improvements. So in the Netherlands, for example, we have more than 10,000 members, mostly are private individuals, families, and SMEs. And what we can offer them for a membership fee per year that is less than 25% of an hourly rate of a lawyer. Due to this technology, we are able to offer them unlimited legal advice throughout the entire year. And I think this type of affordability and access to justice also is one of the key points that we see where it is of extreme value for the sector.
That's really interesting on both those points. So maybe kind of breaking that down, Yin-Ho, and kind of building on that. So you mentioned obviously so on the cost saving side, and you mentioned that the for a yearly fee of less, right, over 25% of what an hourly fee is of a lawyer, you can receive. What you're saying is, if I understand you correct, a similar service. Is that sort of what you're like, or maybe even better service than what a lawyer could offer within that same pricing scale? Is that sort of what you're suggesting?
I'm not saying better. I mean, there are some very good lawyers out there. Unfortunately, there's, like in any other industry, also some less good lawyers. But what I am saying is that due to the fact that we use technology to assure high quality delivery, and the fact that our team of lawyers are super experts because they deal with like tens and hundreds of the same issues every year. So they build up a lot of experience, they build up a lot of best practices. The fact that we don't have to make a lot of copies or we don't have to send out faxes, like it all feeds into just lower cost prices. And of course, we want to make sure that normal individuals and citizens can benefit from this.
Yeah, no, and exactly, and that's the point that I also wanted to turn to that you made, before on the cost side, and also something that came up with Lauda and really comes up, I think, in all of your entire way of even just describing your business is the sort of much more people-centered approach. What I hear from all of you is things like empowering people to be able to do more themselves, and for the legal services to kind of kick in when they've not been able to. But the starting point, from what I hear from all of you, seems to be about sort of empowering the people to actually be able to do that. So maybe in the case, for example, of Autocar, how can you just explain to us how, because just to get a feel for how that is, right? Because let's say I'm a recently or divorcing person, somebody with a serious legal issue that is impacting my life, that of my partner, my children. How is Autocar, as an example, different to what you might experience from a people-centered perspective, right? How would my experience feel any different, and why would I choose sort of your approach, if I can call it that, right? Why would I choose Autocar over just the traditional way of just finding a lawyer to represent my case and represent me? Sorry, Loud, I think you're still muted.
Well, what our clients give back to us, that the mental state that they're in is one of big stress and confusion. and they could go to a lawyer and bring their confusion there. Some of our clients tried that as a first step, and they said, okay, it brought me more stress. I'm looking for a different way to organize something that's so close to me personally. I dealt with my marriage myself, and I now want to deal with my divorce also as a couple. And their experience is that what they give back to is that technology can make it actually very personal. It can make it a very personal experience. So rather than some people thinking, oh, now I'm confronted with a robot and it will become very, it will feel very distant. Like the opposite is true, because the interface allows us to communicate on their level, in their language, and they can do it very importantly from home at the moment that suits them. That can be, late at night when the children are in bed, or maybe in the lunch break they can work on it. So it's really on their terms, and they can also determine the pace. They're not dependent on when the lawyer has free time in the agenda. They don't need to take off from work. So these are all very down to earth reasons why clients like our process, but they can be very important in this period of confusion and of stress. So these are some of the things that our clients tell us.
Excellent. No, thanks for sharing. No, and I'd like to, so we've heard from, I think, all of you sort of, I think, again, for me, the things that stand out are that you are using technology. So you start from a people-centered perspective and build from that. That really is the first thing that comes out, which I think is a red thread throughout your services that I really see. And then you use technology as a sort of enabler to achieve that, and you're able to reduce costs and other things. So I think we've made hopefully a strong case as to how your services are add value to people, also to the institutions and people that you're working with. So you've given examples of lawyers or others that you're working with in your models. What I'd love to pivot now a little bit to is the idea, or basically looking really concretely at the opportunities and barriers around scaling your initiatives, because I think this is something that really is urgent, right? We spend much time piloting things in this sector, right, in the justice sector, as compared to maybe piloting, trying, innovating, trying new things, and a lot of them kind of end in those stages. And so I'm really curious now, maybe this is just an open question, so any of you can feel free to step in here, but what would be some of the major barriers to overcome when it comes to your specific business models, or maybe even more broadly, other innovators in your space? What would you say are some of the main barriers to overcome?
Well, I will start we just giving a quick, let's say, my own view on the point. So, well, it's a tough question, because if we look at, different fields for startups like fintech, maybe we can, ideally think, hey, those industries, those verticals have a higher chance of scaling up faster. And as a matter of fact, if we look at the data, partially it could be true. If we compare those numbers with the legal tech industry in general, we have, let's say, examples of scales up that took more time, starting from ideally 2010, 2012 up to now. Recently, there are a few startups, like, for example, Ironclad recently, I think, fundraised 100 million or more, that did really well, and they are, apparently scaling up faster. So, probably one first piece of the the thinking we should do is, okay, legal tech versus other sectors. The second, let's say, question is, what about justice tech, if there could be one day, the reason for identifying this category. Coming to the specific sector of let's say dispute resolution in general, that can be broad because it can be, I mean, sub-segmented in different ways. Well, I think that there are not that many operators in the space as per today, and I mean, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, I mean, I don't think there has. I mean, something that is really common in the space today is, okay, there is no Uber of justice or offline justice, or there is no single aggregator, right, of really large service for a critical mass of people. Why? Well, I don't know. Probably, I think that we operate in a conservative space, especially in continental Europe. This has to be said. I mean, if we speak with the average, let's say, lawyer in Spain or in Greece, I mean, he won't be that excited to move digitally everything. I personally think that COVID played a role in the digitization of the entire industry, and as a consequence, it played an important impact on the future of what it can be online justice or startups in the justice tech / dispute resolution space. So, I mean, probably the mindset and the need of preserving rather than innovating can be one reason. The second problem could be sometimes the fragmented regulation in place in several countries. This is for sure something true. I think that we should, I mean, enable more sandbox in the space for allowing faster, I mean, growth. And the third reason, in my opinion, is simply connected probably with the sector per se. And it's really hard in this sector to identify a vertical which can be fast growing, where the customer acquisition costs are allowing a fast growth in the range of 36, 48 months. And at the same time, having a market size which is large enough. So I mean, probably one problem has been, you know, especially in Europe, the lack of you know, ecosystem of innovation where capital is abundant. On the opposite, capital historically, especially in Italy, for example, has been extremely not abundant. And I mean, from an investment perspective, there could have been sectors that ideally, you know, could have generated a clearer return over the investment to the investors than, I mean, rather than in this sector. So this could be a partially third reason. Let's say a slight partial unattractiveness from an investment perspective of a sector like this, which even today looks more like a social enterprise sector than I mean, high growth or fast growth sector. So these are my opinions. I'm really looking forward to chat about them with you guys.
Maybe can I follow up on what Alessandro says, because I think it's really striking. If you look like in 2019, more than 1 billion euros was invested in legal and justice tech, which is a lot of money, a lot of risk-bearing money to put in one sector. At the same time, we see that less than 3% of this money was invested in real customer-facing access to justice technology. And I think I can think of some reasons why this is, because I mean, like in the private sector, you know, you have the agility, you have to listen to your customers, you have to be in an ongoing dialogue when you're developing your products, because contrary to public institutions, you don't have a monopoly position. And if you don't deliver satisfactory services, people walk away to the competitors. But the formal justice institutions also are a very closed systems. There are no APIs for justice that you can connect to from the private sector to make sure that you have a smooth justice journey coming out of your service into the courts. There is no such thing. As a matter of fact, what we do see in the market is that many organizations and companies like ours, also the companies in the 2 other parallel sessions currently taking place, they are being battled, they are being fought, they are being dragged to court by law associations because they are not a lawyer, but they still offer access to justice services. So it's not just only that it's not an open system, but it's a very hostile system towards new initiatives and companies that try to deliver enhanced justice by using technology. And this also chases away the investors, because if you know that if you spend 100,000 euros in a company And there's a very high chance that 80,000 euros of these 100,000 have to be spent on lawyers' fees, because this company will be dragged to court by the Bar Association. Yeah, you think twice before you make this important type of investment, I think.
Yeah, if I'm listening to this and also thinking about our own experiences, I think what would be extremely helpful in the growth of this field is if the government and or the Bar Association would take its role as a regulator that sets standards of quality for the solutions, because that's what it is all about in the end. Do citizens, companies get the right solutions at a high quality? And we see now that the focus is strongly on the entry requirements. Who can do what, and what education does one need to have finished in order to provide a good quality? But there is much less attention for what is it that makes a good solution or a good intervention. Who is able to tell that it is a good intervention? Is this measured by any way? And what are these criteria that make up a good solution? So I would, my message would be make if you want to provide access to justice in this world in which technology plays a bigger role, make sure that also other than lawyers can offer services, if of course they can show this quality. And if government could focus on that, I'm sure that in 10 years' time, this is a far more healthier and bigger and richer sector as a whole.
Maybe,
yeah, go ahead, please.
I was just thinking, so 10 years from now, we could see some major improvements. And I also would like to say, immediately, please stop fighting us. We are good people. We have strong moral compasses. We like you. We like to cooperate with you. And as Laura said, I think it's important that some quality standards for outcomes and results are being set, rather than being organized like a guild, determining who can enter and who can not enter. One of the striking examples here I see is that if I have a customer in the Netherlands, I can serve them through the team of lawyers that we have in-house. And I know that we have very strong quality assurance. So I'm sure that this customer receives a very high quality service. If I have a customer in Germany, I can only send them to an external lawyer. And I know, of course, there are very good lawyers, but here the idea seems to be, if you're a qualified lawyer, this means that you have to follow a few courses every year, which automatically means that that's very high quality. But for me, as an outsider, it seems not so much as a mechanism for quality assurance, but it rather seems to be a business model. And I think it would be very good and helpful for our citizens if this would change.
That's a really interesting point. So what I'm hearing from you essentially, just to make sure that I've understood and heard it clear, is that we're actually measuring, or currently, let's say in the more traditional ways of administering justice, we're measuring quality in the wrong way by just measuring, what is the quality of a lawyer or a legal service provider coming in. Does he have the right qualifications? But very little on how the end user actually experiences their solution and or lack thereof. So am I right in hearing from you that the call is please open up and monitor us, regulate us, ensure, keep us, right? We will adhere to any regulations, rules, whatever. But if you allow us to actually monitor the quality of our services, provide these services, we can actually monitor the outcomes and we can share those with you. which in a way is maybe something that isn't currently being done. So otherwise, can we just open it up and have everyone measuring these outcomes and just let the best service providers provide those services?
Absolutely. That's what what I'm saying, and it's not. It also has the added value of making transparent to the end users, to the citizens, what they get. There's no way for a lot of service provision at this moment for someone that seeks justice to understand what to get at the end of a process. There's no way to find other experiences of people that went through the same process, how they experienced it, which choices they made. So I think if there would be this stamp of approval of a public body that regulates, that would really benefit those that seek justice.
I think that's absolutely true. I think also one of the challenges for us as justice innovators is that, unlike lawyers, we are not strongly organized into national guilds that can lobby national governments or that have a lobby office in Brussels saying that they have to be absolutely involved in the development of a codex system or something like this. I think that's one of the challenges, since we are so diverse, aiming for different parts of the justice journeys, but all working on the same mission. But there is no one strong voice that can make this argument to the regulators, I think. That's one of the big challenges.
And I'm curious also, because you've mentioned, and this is more of an open question to everybody, but why do you think that there is this resistance, right? We've heard about some of your peers being taken to court over some of these solutions. What can we do why is this happening? What can we do to change that perception that we're not here to disrupt you or something? We're here to help. How can we change that, or messaging a bit? How do we convincingly show that we're here not to displace them?
Sorry, Borja. I think the answer to your question is rather multispectral. I really believe that many of the more conventional actors in the justice system have sincere quality concerns. I truly believe this. And I think it's important that we help those segments to see how we can design better regulations, basically aiming for the same goal. One other element, I really think it's just guarding your shop. You're basically protecting your own business model and preventing market entry from any other different type of service provider. And for that segment, I would say, yeah, it's really important that we, I don't want to say fight them, but make sure that they don't have any blocking power towards the transition and transformation that is needed.
Excellent points. Thanks, Jinho. Maybe also then, because you mentioned, right, so we've talked about the sort of regulatory barriers a bit and some of the ways in which we can overcome those. The other aspect that I've heard sort of coming in is on the investment side. And I'm hearing messages, right, that we're structured in a way, the ecosystem is kind of built in a way that scares off investors. Maybe, I don't know if it's helpful, but is it helpful when we look at another sort of public services sector, i.e. health? Is it helpful to look at there what has been done in terms of collaboration with private sector? Are there good examples maybe, or ways in which you see parallels between what is being done there and what could be done in the justice sector? Open question here, so any of you feel free to step in.
I can jump in. I think there's a lot of things wrong in the way the finances flow in the healthcare sector, I think. But at the same time, I also truly believe, I think it's a fact that without private capital, we wouldn't have any vaccination for COVID at this stage. When we look into the justice sector, I still find it very strange that a law firm who wants to digitize their services and wants to attract outside investment to finance this innovation are not allowed to do so, because you cannot have ownership in a law firm if you're not a qualified lawyer. And again, I think back in the days, there might have been a good reason for this, and I see the goal that they try to achieve with this. But I also think that yeah, there are other ways to safeguard quality and independence of a law firm, whilst still allowing these type of investments to flow to law firms, so they can also modernize.
So I'm hearing it's almost the same answer as before when we talk about roles of lawyers, and it's investors should be. So we understand why there's hesitation around having private investment in the justice sector, particularly, let's say, when it comes to law firms and others, because we lose control. But once again, maybe the answer there is pure if we focus on measuring the outcomes, and think less about how necessarily money flows, but rather, or where it flows from, but really how that money is used, right? That would allow for investors, and maybe this is also even not just private investors, but also when it comes to public investment, right? We heard, and I think, you mentioned the number of I think you said it was 1 billion, and only 3% of that is spent on on real innovation. So it's difficult to operate if there isn't a level playing field, I think. So when it comes to investments, if I'm hearing you correctly, then there also needs to be some more openness that is well regulated.
Absolutely. Yeah, if I may add something, I mean, on this point, I mean, I agree with you. And then on top of this, I would like to bring a bit of, let's say, I mean, I'm generally optimistic about that. Also, I mean, talking with several investors in the space, including, I mean, American ones especially, I'm optimistic because probably due to COVID, or probably due to the spontaneous and natural time to market, I don't know which one is the real cause. I think that the times are changing. So if we look at, I mean, the recent investments, or also in general, the humor of the market, in my opinion, the time is changing. And I mean, we are partially one example of this change in terms of, I mean, fundraising events. And I think that besides the regulative, let's say, issue, there are, from the institutional point of view, really several, let's say, indicators of openness for innovating this space. I mean, the same conference we're talking with is an example. We as JUR, we cooperated with Lotec UK for drafting the, I mean, the feasibility study for the national platform for ODR for the small claims. This is another, for example, I mean, example. Recently, the UK Jurisdiction Task Force, we contributed to issue the digital dispute resolution framework. So I see from the institution side more and more openness, and also, I mean, willing to open to innovation is the space. And on the other hand, I think that we just need, I mean, examples of successful, scales up in the space, and more capital will come here. I think this will happen soon. Hopefully, I mean, all the three of us will be helping also on and support on this side. We will put, I mean, do all the best for happening that. So personally, I would like also to contribute with another angle and perspective. Sometimes regulation is a problem, right? But it's also our, I mean, as legal tech entrepreneurs, or I mean, I think all of us, we have a legal background. We can find a way for operating in a compliant way, but at the same time to bring a really different coefficient of improvement in the space. And in the end, I mean, people vote with money. So if there is a great service in place, and if we are providing the best service that conquer the heart of our customers, I mean, the capital and money in the space will come. So I think that there are issues in general to be considered, but at the same time, I think even now, but in the next 24 months, a lot of dogmas will, I mean, or they already changed, or they're going to change. So I think, I mean, these years will be remembered really as good ones for innovating the ODR space for multiple reasons. Again, maybe, I mean, the people in the future will be able to put in perspective better than me the events, but I bring on the table these also, I mean, perspective that I think it's probably helpful for the discussion.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much. And on that note, Alessandro, and I know we could carry on this discussion for much longer, but I am being informed that we've run out of time on our panel. So I'd like to thank Laura, Jinho, Alessandro for sharing your perspectives. For those of you that didn't catch all of this, the session will be recorded and shared. So thank you to all our panelists, and of course, thank you very much to the organizers for inviting us and allowing us to be a part of this great event. So thank you once again.